Everybody for being here. I think it's a great segue after what we heard from the past panel that we have. We heard great things about fintechs in Latam, the regulatory framework, and now we have some great founders from Latam that are surfing their wave and created great companies already. But before I begin with them and introducing their companies, I'm going to ask Gabriel to talk a little bit more about the landscape, because A16z, his company, has been a thought leader on writing about they even wrote about the Brazilian Central Bank as being the best in the world. So I think that's a great segue and summarizing what was said in the past panel, how the regulatory framework is helping the fintechs to grow, and how do you see that?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Super excited to be sharing the panel. Yes, as you mentioned, I think that we published an article that I highly recommend for those that haven't looked at it, that talks about the regulatory landscape in Brazil, and the purpose that we did this is to be inspiring not only for countries in Latin America, but for the rest of the world, because we think that, I make this joke that 10 years ago, you used to read in the Wall Street Journal what was going to happen in the rest of Latin America, but now you have to read in Global News what's going to happen in the rest of the world in terms of financial services. So I think that Brazil has been very inspiring, and a lot of people talk about PIX, but it's the result of years of innovation. It started with the merchant acquiring side, the disruption from the duopoly of Cielo and Rede, and then the unbundling of the banking licenses that allow companies like Nubank to raise, so the payment institution license. And then after that, it goes through the SCD, which allows you to monetize through lending. It goes through open banking, then the merchant acquiring receivables to lower the cost of capital. And now, very interesting, they were mentioning about crypto, and there's an amazing opportunity there that we're super excited, because no other markets, I'm originally from El Salvador, and I think that you guys are familiar with what is happening there in Bitcoin, but I think that the president there just kept something that Brazil has worked so well in execution. So in a way has been the execution of an incredible, fantastic team. And in terms of crypto, I think that we're just in the early innings of what will happen.
Great to hear. Thank you for the introduction. And I think a perfect segue in that is having Luis introduce himself, because Cloudwalk is one of the disruptors disrupting the disruptor before, which they disrupting Stone and PagSeguro. And so can you talk a little bit of Cloudwalk, what are you doing, and how we're different from your competitors?
Thanks, Marcio. I think it's pretty meta, right? Disruptor disrupting the disruptors in the disruptive world. So I'm CEO and founder of Cloudwalk. We're a fintech. I say we are building a global payment network. In fact, it's an interplanetary payment network starting in Brazil. In Brazil, we serve more than 1 million customers with payments and banking solutions. We are doing around $500 million in revenue, growing high double digits. We are profitable, so doing around 40 million annualized profit, free cash flow positive. So we are kind of one of the real unicorns, growing fast, profitable, with a bunch of cash, and right now expanding to a new country, US, by the way. So we'll be launching US pretty soon. And the vision of the company is how to create the best solutions for sellers, small sellers, 1 to 3 employee sellers, with a bunch of technology. We are just 500 people, a pretty small company. The vision of the company is to be a $1 trillion company. So we are in the early beginnings of this vision, and we dream big, super big. And pretty soon we want to be like, with our payment solutions and banking solutions in the whole planet Earth, 5 different regions, and more in the future in other planets. That's it.
We need more ambitious Brazilians like you, Luis. That's perfect. Coming back to work, Doug, if you can talk a little bit about fintech infrastructure, banking as a service, and SaaS integration, which is something that you're doing greatly in Brazil now, and talk a little bit about Swap.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, everybody. So Swap is a banking as a service or a wallet as a service provider in Brazil, and we offer all the infrastructure needed for a company to create their mini bank embedded in their service. From the beginning of the company, we were pursuing that. Before Swap, I was working for 99, ride-hailing company, and I was trying to launch the wallet for the ecosystem, and it was super hard to do so. We couldn't find partners. But back then, I already noticed that a lot of other companies, not only marketplaces, but many other kind of companies, were venturing into launching their financial services. And there is a lot of infrastructure needed to do so, and to build all the puzzle and pick all the pieces in the market is super hard. But more and more what we are seeing today is companies that were born as a pure SaaS companies starting to diversify and offer financial services together with their original services, being it, for example, an expense management company that used it only to collect the information and build a report for the CFO, that is now launching its own financial services with the card attached to it, so that the expense happens within the software, not on top of it. So more and more what we see is this integration, especially when you're talking about the CHRO stack or the CFO stack, companies that use it to serve those C-suite executives only through a software as a service fashion. They are now embedding finance into their offering.
That's amazing. Great. Thank you. We have another very ambitious Brazilian here from my side, André, from DrumWave. I think is a incredible story what André is trying to build here, which is a shifting paradigm. I asked him to explain himself because if I don't want to commit any mistakes here. So André, talk a little bit about DrumWave and what you see about the shifting paradigm in data ownership.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. My name is André Vellozo. I'm the founder and CEO of DrumWave. Well, we believe all of us, we were born and raised in a stack of technology that has changed from hardware to software. All our experience is based on that thing. All the metrics, everything we can measure, everything we saw so far. But what DrumWave believe for the last 7 years, right, is that this paradigm is going to start to shift right now, and this time is from software to data. Right? As we evolved in this path, which was very hard because we did almost everything backwards. We started with patents and doing services here. We've learned that one of the biggest problems that we have so far today is how to address data valuation and data ownership rights. So a good way to explain this is you keep your money in the bank, right? You can withdraw your money, you can wire your money, but you keep your data in the cloud. You don't have any autonomy over your data, right? So what DrumWave is building are the rails and the infrastructure to give data three things: transportability, divisibility, and resistance to counterfeit. And we're going to connect consumers, companies and consumers, through the value of their data, right?
Great. Very interesting. We're going to come back to you to some more explanation of that to understand a little bit better. Gabriel, we talked a little bit before, and you said that in your vision now, a lot of what Doug said, that integration between software and vertical is something that you see grow and excited about it. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you see that?
Yeah, I think that one of the theses that we're the most excited in Latin America and in Brazil is the rise of vertical software. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of segments of the economy that haven't been well served before by other traditional institutions. And I think that there's a new wave of aggregators, let's say companies that go and focus entirely on serving just restaurants or beauty and salons or just the agriculture space. But historically, this segment in the United States has only worked, make the unit economics work if you offer financial services to it. So if you offer payments, and if you offer them lending and other financial products. So companies like Swap actually are, like, now that they exist and serve the market, are actually enabling these companies to go after and make the unit economics work in terms of the go-to-market strategy. Because usually when you go and aggregate this segment, it's usually the way that Stone did it, which is like knocking door to door, and it requires an expensive sales force. So you have to make sure that that you have the revenue per account that makes it work. Another aspect that is super exciting now, especially with AI, and that we're starting to see a couple of players in Latin America targeting the segment, is that, you know, you can automate a lot of the conversations now that you can have with your sales force. So a lot of people are interacting. You know, WhatsApp adoption is among the highest in Latin America. I think it's around 64% in Brazil of the entire population, which is incredibly high. And one of the things that this allows is that with LLMs, you can have conversations with people and gather valuable information that can make you do a better sale. So this is something that is reducing the cost of the sales force. And then just to give you another paradigm that we're seeing is that now also with AI, you can generate a website in 30 seconds, regardless of the industry that you're in, and regardless, let's say that you're in a restaurant space that you want to create a sushi, you know, in Sao Paulo, a sushi restaurant, you can create that in 30 seconds. And also you can create advertisement, and you can create videos in 30 seconds. So that is a hook that you get people into the platform, and then you can eventually sell them a software to be like, oh, you're starting a restaurant. Why don't you use this POS system to start your restaurant? So I think that this is how things are changing and actually making the unit economics work, where in the past, the willingness to pay for software in Latin America has been really low. But if you get the hook and you get to market and you get this distribution insight, you can make the economic work in aggregate.
Great. Do you agree with that, Doc? And how do you, and you were talking before the start of the panel, and you said that you grew like by 20 times in the past 22 years. And how are you doing that? And obviously there's a need in the market. And what are the next steps for you in Swap?
Yeah. So yeah, in over the past 24 months, we grew 20x. And the way we got there is because our business model works through partnerships, right? So we empower companies that are serving. So we empower about 43 companies that are serving 9,000 other companies that are providing services to over 1 million users. So it's an exponential model that in every step gets more traction, and that's how it scales fast. But the point, and going back to Gabriel, is more and more we are seeing those aggregators, and those are the companies that are making that transformation possible, because they are providing a service that is required by many other companies, and it's always in a B2B model, right? And that's the new frontier. The point is, before or in the past, it was super expensive to try and build a viable model for a specific use case. So you would have banks serving those companies, but in a very, let's say, pasteurized way that would not be optimal for any one of the use cases. It would be at best average for everyone, right? That would be the hope. But you would have to try to serve 10 million, 50 million people in order to have a business model that would stand up. Now, with the technology and the ability of building an infrastructure that can be leveraged and used by different companies, you reduce the entry barriers and you make smaller projects viable. So companies now are focusing on a very specific use case. They can have a viable model, and that's how the flywheel works.
Great. Luis, you build your interplanetary payment network. What is the secret for competing and being successful outside of Brazil? How do you see yourself being successful, and why your technology is going to make sense and prevail for the consumers and customers?
No, that's a great question. We are still building. We are not in Mars yet. So
Similar.
trademark. So one of the key things is cost to serve. So we have the best cost to serve in the Brazil region right now for payments and banking, for SMBs, small sellers. And I think the customer experience to us is really important. We have the highest NPS also in Brazil. Our NPS in payments is 75. Average in our industry is 25. So basically, the customers from the other companies, they hate them and they love us. So that helps a lot. The other thing is how to give like the best technology for all these small sellers, but with the best design, the best customer experience, the best storytelling, and how to make these customers to be our main sales force. We don't have any sales force or any sales person in the company. It's just design folks, marketing folks, community building folks, and that makes a huge difference. Also, we have been exploring with AIs a lot. It's mainly Gen AI. So if you go to our website right now, most of the content that there is Gen AI. And today, like 45% of the whole customer experience, customer support, is being handled by our AI agent. We call him Claudio. It's a poem with the word Cloudwalk, the name of the company. And he's serving, like, talk with our customers. And most of the customers, 99% of our customers, thinks that Claudio is a human and really like Claudio. He has the best rating in our customer support platform. And there is this nice story. Customer was being handled by Claudio, and Claudio fixed the problem of the customer. And in the end of the conversation, the customer said to Claudio, God bless you and your family. And Claudio said, all right, thank you very much. And we as humans, we were looking at the conversation and we were kind of, what the fuck, man? Who is the family of Claudio, you know? Who is the mother and father, right?
Is it Claudio Shannon?
Yeah, could be called Shannon, right, André? So I think this kind of AI, Gen AI, cost to serve, good customer experience, good design, and good storytelling is the basis of our story. In Brazil now, US, then other regions, and pretty soon, who knows, other planets. But it shows that we have this big vision, and we do believe that's pretty important. There is pretty important philosophical questions regards what is the future of work and what is the future of all the companies, including our company, when we have AGI, for example, in the next 2, 3, 5 years. So AIs that are more powerful than any human. So how we are going to handle that and manage our company. So we keep thinking about all of that stuff every day.
Thank you. André, and where's the next step for you to implement your model, and where you're in the stage, and how do you see the next few months playing out?
You see, just jumping on you, right? We're seeing all this AI like improvements, right? And I've been listening to people telling us, "Wow, we got this level of efficiency, and we just fired 1,000 people, and we're now working with 50, right?" And we're Brazilians, right? So we're very fond and very proud of our finance technology. And everybody's here working with payments and Pix scaled, like hyper scaled. Nothing has ever scaled like Pix in the technology realm, right? And everybody pretty much worried about how we're gonna intermediate payments. I'm just getting on top of that, right? So we are, in our side, way more interested in how we're gonna make money in this future. Right? You don't need a lot of help to spend your money. You're gonna need a lot of help to make money in the future, and it's pretty close. So what DrumWave is building is what we call a new social license to operate, which is kind of new standards, new procedures to allow consumers, citizens, companies, and even government to establish what we call data ownership rights. because in this next future, which is knocking on the door, right? If you don't own your data, it's going to be kind of hard to make money, right? So next steps. We incubated business in Brazil last year. Very good team. I'm super proud. It's an opportunity that I've never think I was facing in my life at this age and time, right? In Brazil, we got like big banks, big insurance companies, health companies, food companies, and all of those companies, they have mapped and they had scored their valuation in their databases. So now we're gonna start to accelerate product from the US. We got the MVP down in Brazil. We brought it here. We brought the small product team that we used to have there. We've hired a bunch of people here to improve the product. November the 3rd, we start to touch the ground here. Everybody here is invited. We're going to have an event in Palo Alto at the Henna House, November 3rd, starting early in the morning. And then we run through a sprint up to spring, and we plan to launch on spring Financial District, New York City. D-Wallet platform. You can open your account and open a data savings account. You're going to save your data.
We've been talking a lot about data today and enterprise data, but not personal data. No, and in the end, everybody's using their data for free today. So that's very interesting. Gabriel, coming back to Brazil, and today we have last year, if you were here, everyone was talking about crypto, and it seems to be dead. But in Brazil, we said that Brazil has a digital real coming up, and a lot of tokenization and blockchain opportunities happening. Do you see any new investments there in that area? What have you seen interesting, and that's something that can come back and teach someone here that forgot about that?
Yeah, I think that the overlap of crypto and Brazil is actually very interesting. So Brazil is one of the countries that has the lowest recovery rates in terms of debt in comparison to the rest of the world. I think that it was very close to Mozambique. And that was very shocking when we were doing this research. And that obviously translates in higher cost of capital, because if you think that you're not going to recover your money, it's going to be incredibly expensive. And then there's this wave of innovation of financial services, of fintechs coming into Brazil, having these new ways to underwrite the population and tailor the products according to that. But one of the things that happens is that these companies, while they're growing, they have to raise FDICs, and they get financed by traditional credit investors or banks in Brazil. And then they have to resell some of their receivables to the banks so they don't hold the risk in their balance sheet, right? So what happens is that in Brazil, still there's only about 5 banks that dominate the majority of the volume that they buy in receivables. So what happens is that you see an oligopolistic behavior there where they set the pricing, and even though you're doing the better underwriting, in theory, you have to pay the pricing to the oligopoly. So one of the things that we're actually spending a lot of time, and there's a lot of really smart entrepreneurs starting companies in this space, is in the tokenization of debt in Brazil. And this is like a very specific use case that I think could be massive for the rest of the world as well. Because what happens is that if you can structure the debt of a fintech into different tranches, very similar to the mortgage-backed securities in the US, but this is not the example. If you can structurize it like that, then you can have the direct connection and tokenize it to international investors, that's going to lower the cost of capital for the fintechs. And by lowering the cost of capital of the fintechs, you're going to lower the cost of capital for the consumers or the merchants that you're serving. So I think that this is actually one of the areas that we're the most excited about, because Brazil is ahead of any other country in the world. And I think that given the dynamic where the cost of capital in Brazil is extremely high, until I think 2 weeks ago that the central bank capped the interest rates from, I think on average, some companies were charging 400%, and now it's capped to 100%. But still, there's a lot of work to do in lowering the cost of capital, and I think that crypto actually could play an important role in reducing this cost.
Luis, is that part of your strategy? I know before you start, you use part of your lower costs is because you have your own infrastructure, and some of that is via blockchain. Do you still using that, or something that you're excited about it, or how you see that?
Yeah, we are fully vertically integrated. We have our own blockchain network. It's called Cloudwalk network. We don't have external validator nodes. We control all the validator nodes. It's a permissioned ledger. We did our own stable coin. It's called BRLC, Brazilian Digital Real. We started to tokenize a bunch of our debts and our FIDICs as well, a couple of billions. I think the industry right now it's in the what we call crypto winter. So there's a bunch of super cool hardcore builders creating really nice stuff, especially with ZK snarks, like privacy stuff, bunch of data stuff happening. And I think the future of blockchain that I believe is eventually the blockchain technology is going to replace the whole financial system as we know. And it's going to be by the central banks. They're creating their own blockchain, their own stable coins. And also we have Ethereum, we have Bitcoin, maybe other blockchain network that is going to appear pretty soon. And I think we are going to see this, for real, we are going to see this merge between blockchain and AI. And then we are going to see AI agents managing their own resources using blockchain and this kind of stuff. So I think it's a future where we are going to see blockchain networks and AIs that humans doesn't control anymore, making transactions between themselves and with humans sometimes. So that's the future I imagine for blockchain AI. But coming to the present, we use, and it's more efficient.
Very interesting. I don't know if is that play a role in your company, Doug. I don't think so. But so changing gears a little bit, what is the next steps for Swap? What are you looking to build for the future? Any new lines of business? Keep growing acquiring new clients? What are the plans for the future?
We are approaching now what is known in the market as the hypergrowth phase, right? That's when the product has already proven its track, it's gaining momentum, and more customers are joining the platform. With that, we gain the ability to expand the reach of the company. So today we are focused on the specific use cases, and despite what is the norm in the market that banking as a service is a generalist, we positioned ourselves as a specialist. But as specialists only go so far. So the idea is to continue including other use cases, but being specialized in each one of them. And with that, we're going to be the primary provider for B2B payments in Brazil. That's the vision.
Great. André, how are the customers going to own their own data? What are the process there, and how do we envision that happening?
I think it's a simple process where only relationships generate data, right? So you have relationships with people, with your phone. You have relationships with places, with money, and all those relationships, they happen through touch points. So we are certifying touch points, creating a very specific core transaction that allows you to exchange value for value, pay for the stuff, and then have your data in this data savings account. So they're going to sign up for a credential, just like Visa. So we're building Visa for data, right? And financial system will distribute the wallets as if it was a credit card. And by having the access to that, you sign up for a savings account and you start to bring data to this D-wallet.
Very, very interesting. I'd like to open up for some questions here. If anyone want to ask any question for any of the panelists here, entrepreneurs, will be great.
Hi, my name is Clarissa Richardson. This is maybe more for André and Luis as founders and owners. I work in commercial real estate, and I'm curious how, with the success of your growing companies, how you view in-person work and collaboration. In San Francisco, we see a lot of demand coming from AI companies for physical office space. So I'm curious what your takes are on that.
That's an awesome question. I was having lunch with one of our seed investor 10 years ago about this topic. And like I do believe that's really when you are in a seed stage and you're growing and creating product, you need to be in person. You need to be in the office with the designers, the software developers, everyone together, the business people creating as a team. So it's pretty important in that phase to be face to face in person because change the outcome of the product, the outcome of the app or the product you're producing. When you start to scale, I think you need to leverage the best talent or like in the whole planet. So it's pretty hard to convince everyone to move back to Palo Alto or the peninsula, or even in Brazil. We have an office in Brazil, but we have people from 15 different countries. So to us, it's impossible to grab everyone and put them in the office. But time to time, we try to put everyone in the same office. And I think we are going to see this hybrid relationship with sometimes folks in the office, sometimes folks remote. It's going to be a mix in between. I don't think folks are going to be all back to the office for the long run. I think because if people have choice, they're not going to commute to the office every day. That's pretty simple. That's a fact. So sometimes you cannot convince these folks to come to the office, and sometimes you need to accept. So I think you're going to see a balance between hybrid, remote, and in office.
The way I think about it is that there's a different level of intensity when you work by yourself at home, and also a different level of intensity when you work at the office. And I rather have at the office different spots, because just it's not about having just one table, right? Just having different spots and being able to create different experiences. Sometimes it's not working here. Let's go to the other side. Let's go outside. Let's go to that meeting room. I love to have different spots, right? That we can just move and just grab people from here to there, and change the mood and the intensity, right?
I'd like to hear Doug's opinion here because I think he doesn't have an office, no?
No, I don't. So we use it to have an office, and as many other companies did in 2020, we closed the office, but we were 20 people at that time, and we scaled to 200 people during the pandemic. So we hired people everywhere in Brazil, not in the whole country yet, the whole world yet, but we hired people from across Brazil, leveraging and trying to find talent where they were. And today it is impossible to bring everybody to the office. Although once every quarter we do bring everybody to a hotel and do 2-3 days of strategic planning, training, and like just mingling and partying sometimes, right? It helped us, even without the physical location, to create the culture and to establish the bond between people. And it has been working well, though I now feel the push from the company to have a physical space. Not to go every day, but people are tired of not being able to connect. They are tired of only getting to meetings through Zoom or through Google.
That's very interesting.
So we are thinking about a space where people can go and have a meeting, where a manager can bring the team, even if it's not in São Paulo, can bring a team for a week and stay there, working together, problem solving. So we're thinking how to create that space.
Great input. Thank you. Any other questions here on the audience?
Chris Knight with Divino Group, and this is for André. The data privacy laws around the world, GDPR, California, changed the landscape and really impacted advertising and social media, et cetera. Gavin Newsom introduced the idea of Facebook and Meta and Google and others actually giving money back to the consumers. Do you see regulatory changes coming down the pike that's going to accelerate the ability to bring on this new data economy that you're talking about?
Sure. I've been in Brussels like last month, talking to regulators. I've been to the U.S. Committee of Banking of the U.S. Senate. We've been pushing data ownership rights from Brazil globally. Super important. The thing of privacy is that we have this thing in our minds, right? Even the AI Act in Europe is just all based on privacy, right? But the way you think is just if the data was yours, right? There's a leak, there's a misuse of the data, there's a like $5 billion fine. You should have this money to you, right? But no, the money doesn't go to you. So the whole privacy legislation was important to set up the stage for the next step, which is data ownership rights.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Maybe I ask Gabriel here to ask, since he's the investor here and have the entrepreneur here, if you were to invest in one of those gentlemen, like what question would you ask? Or you can pick one of them or one to each of them.
Well, I talked to these two gentlemen already. I think I'm a huge fan of what they're building. I think that beyond the question is just, I think it's incredible the message that they're sending. I love the message of like, not even just this world, like let's go eat and Mars and I think that's all about it. Like is the ambition, you know. I part of my new thesis that I'm going to launch January. I'm going to launch a post about it. Is about building global companies starting in Latin America, taking advantage of these new dynamics of the go-to-market, where you can aggregate large retailers, large banks, and cater a product, but then after you implement the velocity, go global. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more of that. There's a lot of also amazing Brazilian entrepreneurs that started in the US and are building global products, like the guys from Brex, you know, obviously Facebook, Instagram. And in the AI wave, I've seen a lot of also Brazilians. In one of our best companies in AI is Character AI, has a Brazilian co-founder. There's another company called Runway, it has 2 Chileans. So like, besides the question, it's just mostly super encouraging to see the ambition. And I think that what we need is to have more people that there. And I think I think Latin America will eventually pass from non-consensus in venture capital to consensus, and I think that this generation will make it happen, that it will just not be Nubank, but it will be so many companies that people have to practice their memory.
Great to hear that, Gabriel. Maybe ask some last comments from starting with André, if you want to address any other topics that we haven't talked about it, because you're such a complex thing that you're building that maybe I didn't ask the right questions here.
No, you're super good. I think that as a last message here, for the good and the bad, right? For the good and the bad, we've seen social media erase the trust out of the media ecosystem. Then, for the good and the bad again, we saw cryptos trying to become social media of finance. We've been following trends. It's important. That's the business, right? But I think we really need to focus a little bit on that, right? It's how to build trust, and we got to build trust through data, right? That's
Very good.
What is the next step?
Okay, so I think I will end here because they just signal me that our time is up. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for thank you.